Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a close look at one of the most important developments in the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine's attack in the southern regions has started to reshape the entire battlefield. What's happening there is not just a matter of front lines moving back and forth. It's about strategy, morale, logistics, and the balance of power in this long and difficult war. Over the past months, Ukraine has shifted attention to its southern front. This area includes parts of the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions and reaches toward the coast of the Sea of Azov. The reason for this move is both military and political. The south is crucial because it connects to key supply routes, ports, and access points to the Black Sea. For Ukraine, success in this region would mean restoring trade routes, gaining leverage in negotiations, and weakening Russia's grip on occupied territories. At the same time, the fighting in the south is different from what we saw earlier in the war. In 2022 and 2023, battles were often dominated by artillery duels and trench warfare. Now, Ukraine is employing new tactics. Instead of massive frontal assaults, Ukrainian forces are focusing on mobility, precision, and coordination. They use drones, small unit infiltration, and rapid movement to exploit weak spots in Russian defenses. This approach is making it difficult for Russia to hold its positions the way it did before. The Russian army has built strong defensive lines across the southern front. These include trenches, minefields, and fortified positions stretching for miles. But no defense is perfect. When Ukraine attacks in multiple directions at once, it forces Russia to divide its attention and resources. Even small gains can create instability behind the front, threatening supply lines and logistics. This is what Ukraine seems to be aiming for, not just territorial control, but a systematic weakening of Russia's ability to sustain its forces. In recent weeks, reports from the battlefield show Ukrainian troops making limited but meaningful progress. They are moving step by step, clearing minefields, using reconnaissance drones to identify targets, and striking with precision artillery. Every advance may only be a few kilometers, but collectively they start to shift the operational picture. Russian forces have been forced to respond quickly, redeploying units and sometimes abandoning positions to avoid being encircled. These small tactical successes build over time into larger strategic effects. One of the most important aspects of Ukraine's current strategy is the use of technology. Drones now play a massive role in reconnaissance, artillery adjustment, and direct attack. Both sides use them, but Ukraine has become especially skilled at integrating them into battlefield operations. This allows Ukrainian commanders to make decisions based on real-time intelligence, rather than relying solely on static maps or delayed reports. The result is a faster, more flexible military operation that can adapt to changing circumstances on the ground. Russia has tried to counter this by deploying electronic warfare systems to jam communications and GPS signals. However, Ukraine's innovation and foreign support have helped them keep their edge. Western supplied weapons like precision artillery and long-range missiles have increased Ukraine's ability to hit key Russian targets far behind the front lines. Supply depots, command posts, and bridges have all been struck, disrupting Russian logistics. This kind of deep strike campaign puts extra pressure on the Russian army and weakens its defensive network. The southern front is also strategically valuable because of its connection to Crimea. Russia has used Crimea as a central base for operations, logistics, and air power since occupying it in 2014. If Ukraine can get close enough to threaten key routes into Crimea, such as the land corridor through Melitopol or the bridge over the Kerch Strait. It would deal a heavy blow to Russia's military presence in the region. This is why Russia is fighting so hard to hold these areas. Losing them would not only be a tactical defeat, but a major symbolic and logistical one as well. Another key element in Ukraine's campaign is the emphasis on disrupting Russian command and control. By targeting communication lines, headquarters, and supply depots, Ukraine aims to create confusion and slow down Russian decision-making. When a defending army loses coordination, its ability to respond effectively drops dramatically. This makes even small breakthroughs potentially catastrophic for the defender. Ukraine's commanders understand this and are exploiting it through coordinated attacks that combine artillery, drones, and infantry maneuvers. At the same time, we must recognize that Ukraine's southern offensive is not without challenges. The terrain in this region is open and exposed, making movement difficult under constant surveillance. Minefields are extensive and slow down every step of progress. Russian artillery continues to pose a serious threat. Every village taken comes at a cost, often measured in lives and equipment. The Ukrainian army must balance aggression with caution, ensuring that any gain is sustainable and defensible. Despite these obstacles, Ukraine's persistence is paying off in subtle but important ways. Every Russian unit forced to retreat or reposition is one less unit available for offensive actions elsewhere. Every destroyed ammunition depot or bridge means more pressure on Russian logistics. The psychological effect is also significant. When soldiers see the enemy gaining ground and threatening key areas, morale suffers. This morale shift can become as decisive as any territorial gain. The reshaping of the battlefield is not only military, it is also political. Ukraine's success in the south strengthens its hand with international allies. Demonstrating progress keeps Western support strong and helps justify continued military aid. On the other hand, Russia faces growing pressure to show it can hold its lines. Failures in the south may undermine public confidence in its leadership and weaken its negotiating position. This makes the southern campaign a crucial test for both sides, not just in military terms, but in political credibility. The southern offensive also highlights how modern warfare has evolved. Traditional tank battles are becoming less common, replaced by drone swarms, electronic warfare, and precision-guided weapons. Ukraine's adaptation to this new form of warfare is remarkable. It shows how a smaller nation, with determination and innovation, can challenge a larger opponent by being smarter, faster, and more adaptive. This is reshaping military thinking far beyond this conflict. Other countries are watching closely, learning from how Ukraine fights and innovates under pressure. On the ground, the daily reality for soldiers remains brutal. Trenches, constant bombardment, and drone attacks define the battlefield. But amidst this, Ukrainian troops maintain focus on their objective, pushing southward, liberating towns, and regaining control of critical infrastructure. Each liberated settlement brings them closer to the strategic goal of cutting the Russian land bridge to Crimea. It also brings hope to civilians who have lived under occupation. These symbolic victories matter deeply for morale at home. Meanwhile, Russia is not standing still. It continues to reinforce its southern positions, using drones, air power, and artillery to slow Ukrainian advances. It has learned from past mistakes and adapted some of its tactics. Russian forces have increased the use of small groups for infiltration and sabotage operations, relying less on large, easily targeted formations. This makes them harder to track, but also limits their ability to hold ground effectively. Both armies are locked in a deadly cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation. As winter approaches, weather will again play a role in shaping the campaign. Mud, rain, and freezing temperatures make logistics more complicated for both sides. Vehicles struggle to move, drones are harder to operate, and soldiers face harsh conditions. Ukraine will try to maintain pressure through the winter months, using long-range strikes and sabotage to keep Russia off balance. Russia will likely dig in, strengthening defenses and waiting for opportunities to counterattack when conditions improve. Beyond the immediate battlefield, the southern offensive carries economic and humanitarian implications. Control of ports and coastal routes affects Ukraine's ability to export grain and import supplies. Restoring these routes would help stabilize the Ukrainian economy, which has been heavily hit by the war. For civilians in occupied areas, every Ukrainian advance offers the possibility of liberation and return to normal life. For Russia, losing control of these areas would mean not only military defeat, but economic and symbolic loss. Internationally, the progress in the South influences global perceptions of the war. Every successful Ukrainian operation reinforces the narrative that this is a fight for sovereignty and self-determination. It encourages allies to continue providing support, while making it harder for opponents to argue that Ukraine's efforts are futile. The outcome of the southern campaign may therefore determine not only the future of Ukraine, but also the future of Western engagement in this conflict. Looking deeper into strategy, Ukraine's approach in the south reflects a broader shift toward attrition and pressure rather than quick breakthroughs. The goal is to steadily degrade Russian capabilities while preserving Ukrainian strength. This means hitting supply lines, exhausting reserves, and maintaining constant tactical pressure. Over time, such a campaign can lead to collapse from within rather than a sudden, dramatic victory. This approach requires patience, discipline, and long-term planning, which Ukraine seems to have developed through hard experience. For Russia, the challenge is maintaining morale and logistics across such a vast and contested front. Supply routes are stretched, ammunition consumption is high, and manpower shortages remain a problem. The longer the war drags on, the more these problems grow. While Russia still holds numerical advantages in some areas, those advantages are eroding under sustained pressure. This is why Ukraine's attacks in the south matter so much. They exploit Russia's structural weaknesses while maximizing Ukraine's strengths. The human cost remains high on both sides. Soldiers face constant risk, and civilians continue to endure displacement, shelling, and economic hardship. Yet, amidst this suffering, Ukraine's ability to keep fighting, innovating, and advancing has inspired resilience worldwide. The story of this war is not only about weapons and tactics, but about determination and adaptation under the most difficult conditions imaginable. In the coming months, the outcome of Ukraine's southern campaign will likely define the next phase of the war. If Ukraine can maintain its momentum, secure key transportation routes, and threaten Crimea's access points, it could force a major strategic rethink in Moscow. If Russia manages to hold the line and stabilize the front, the war could drag on into another year of grinding stalemate. Both sides understand the stakes, and neither is willing to back down. For now, what's clear is that the battlefield is changing. The static lines of earlier months are giving way to more fluid and unpredictable movements. Technology, intelligence, and morale are playing a larger role than sheer numbers. Ukraine's attack has reshaped not only the geography of the conflict, but also its logic. It has shown that persistence, precision, and adaptability can challenge even a stronger adversary. As the world watches, the lessons from the Southern Front will continue to influence modern military thinking. Nations will study how Ukraine integrates drones, intelligence, and decentralized command. They'll note how the psychological and logistical aspects of warfare can sometimes outweigh pure firepower. And they'll remember how one determined nation reshaped a battlefield that once seemed impossible to change. Ukraine's southern offensive is therefore not just another battle in a long war. It is a turning point that shows how strategy, technology, and human resilience can combine to alter the course of history. The road ahead remains difficult, but each step taken in the south brings Ukraine closer to its goal of freedom, security, and peace. Thank you all for staying until the end. If you found this discussion insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more detailed updates and explanations of key developments in global affairs. Your support helps us continue bringing clear analysis on stories that matter. Stay safe and see you in the next video.